A year after I died, the doctor who caused my tragic end on the operating table was finally arrested for bribery and murder. The trial was broadcast live across the country. One by one he confessed to his crimes. When he reached the third victim, he suddenly went silent. Actually, I didn't want to kill her. She was carrying a baby girl, almost fully formed, he whispered. But someone paid me $3 million to make sure she never left that table alive. The most ironic part? Her husband still thinks it was an accident. He ended up marrying the woman who paid for the hit. They even have a kid now. The courtroom fell into a deafening silence. The livestream comments froze as the viewers processed the horror. Meanwhile, my husband, Silas Guthrie, the city's most prestigious defense attorney, knew nothing about the storm brewing. He was at home, gently changing the diaper of his newborn daughter. My soul never moved on. I've been tethered to Silas, drifting beside him like a cold shadow. Silas was sitting cross-legged on the plush rug in the nursery. He cradled the baby's tiny bottom with practiced care. His movements clumsy but filled with devotion. No one would have guessed that the ruthless shark of the courtroom could be this tender at home. Felicia Shaw stood beside him, leaning down to tease the infant with a giggle. "Look, baby, that's Daddy. Daddy is taking such good care of you," she cooed. Watching their perfect little family made my ghostly heart ache for the child I never got to hold. 2 years ago, I walked into that hospital and sent Silas one last text. "I can't stand her, Silas. If you don't fire Felicia, I'm filing for divorce." He didn't fire her. He didn't even come looking for me. I thought it was just another Cold War, a storm we'd weather like we always did. We had been married for 3 years and fought countless times, but we always found our way back. I assumed this time would be the same, but he never reached out again, and he never knew I was carrying his child. Suddenly, Silas's phone buzzed on the floor. "Mr. Guthrie, a high-profile suspect is demanding you as his lead counsel." The voice on the other end said, "I'm not interested. My plate is full." Silas replied flatly, "The suspect says he's certain you'll take the case once you hear the victim's name." Silas hung up the phone, his brow furrowed in annoyance. Felicia stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Work again, Silas? You just got home." Silas stood up and grabbed his coat, planting a soft kiss on her forehead. "Something I need to clear up at the office. Stay home and rest, okay? Don't overwork yourself with the baby." He made it to the detention center in record time. When he saw Lyle Jansen sitting behind the glass, Silas's lip curled in disgust. "I don't do pro bono for scum like you. You're a waste of oxygen." Lyle just let out a dry, chilling chuckle. "Do you remember Nora Guthrie?" Silas froze, his hand tightening on his briefcase. "That's none of your business. Why are you bringing her up?" Lyle leaned in, his eyes gleaming with malice. "You hesitated for a full second when I said her name. Do you really not care about her anymore?" "Oh, that's right. I forgot. She was your wife before she disappeared, wasn't she?" Silas stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "If you're going to waste my time with ghost stories, we're done here." Lyle burst into a fit of laughter, doubling over as if it were the funniest joke in the world. "Counselor, you're going to beg to represent me." He stared Silas down, his voice dropping to a low hiss. "Remember that woman I mentioned? The one with the unborn baby? That was Nora." Silas narrowed his eyes, his expression shifting to one of cold impatience. Nora was obsessed and jealous. She went as far as trying to sabotage Felicia's career. How much did she pay you to lie for her from behind bars? This is a pathetic attempt at a stunt. Lyle leaned back, looking relaxed. "I'm not lying. She died on my table 2 years ago. I watched the light go out of her eyes. We're finished." Silas snapped, turning toward the door. "I have proof she's dead, Silas. Hard proof." Silas's footsteps halted. His voice was like ice. "Nora isn't dead. I won't fall for your games. You'll be back." "I know you will," Lyle said with absolute certainty. I followed Silas as he walked out, my soul trailing behind his hurried steps. When he got home, he was completely distracted. He messed up the baby's formula twice, adding too many scoops. Felicia noticed and gently took the bottle from his hands. "Silas, honey, is everything okay at work?" He snapped out of his trance and simply shook his head, offering a forced smile. Then his phone rang again. Silas held the baby in one arm while fishing the phone out with his free hand. The caller ID read, Major Crimes Unit. The baby nuzzled against his shoulder as he answered with a stiff neck. Is this Silas Guthrie? Speaking. There's been a major breakthrough in the missing person case for your wife, Nora Guthrie. Silas's fingers stiffened against the baby's back. Nora isn't missing. She's just throwing a tantrum. We haven't been in touch, that's all. Do you actually have evidence of a disappearance? Or are we wasting taxpayers' money? There was a long pause on the other end. Mr. Guthrie, we have records showing Nora was admitted to Eastwood Medical Center 2 years ago. Silas cut him off harshly. That's impossible. 2 years ago she bought a ticket to Key West after an argument. She never went to Eastwood. Sir, we have the ambulance dispatch logs and the hospital admission files. Silas went silent, his face turning a sickly shade of pale. Felicia walked out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Who was that? Silas hung up the phone immediately. Wrong number. He lied. He handed the baby to Felicia and walked out onto the balcony. He didn't turn on the lights. He leaned against the railing and lit a cigarette, took one drag, and immediately crushed it out. He had quit 3 years ago because I told him I hated the smell of tobacco. He pulled out his phone and opened our old chat history. The last message was still that text from 2 years ago. If you don't come get me right now, I'm never coming back. He stared at those words for a long time. I remembered that day so clearly. Felicia had been his star intern. I had visited his office and caught them in a moment that felt far too intimate. That was the first time I had truly screamed at him. Silas had just rubbed his temples back then. You're overreacting, Nora. She's just an assistant. We were discussing a brief. After that, the fighting became a daily routine. Silas didn't take it seriously. In fact, he started spending even more time with Felicia. On the day I left, Silas had forgotten our anniversary because Felicia was sick and needed him. I had dropped the divorce papers on his desk. I asked him to choose, me or Felicia. He hesitated. In that moment of silence, I knew he had fallen for her. I was a proud woman. I couldn't accept a third person in my marriage. But on my way out, I never expected a semi-truck to plow into my car. I was rushed to the ER, clinging to life. Even then, I hallucinated that Silas would hear the news and come running to save me. I never imagined I would never take another breath. Silas waited until Felicia and the baby were fast asleep before heading back out. He went straight to the precinct to see Lyle Jansen again. Tell me where she is, I'll take your case. Lyle didn't look surprised at all. He sat up straight and looked Silas in the eye. She's dead, Silas gone. Silas slammed his fist against the plexiglass. If you don't start telling the truth, I'm walking out that door for good. Lyle just shrugged. I am telling the truth. Believe it or not, it's your funeral. That's a lie. She's probably living some secret life just to spite me. Counselor, stop lying to yourself. Go check the archives at Eastwood Medical Center. She died on the table. No emergency contact could be reached, so the hospital handled the remains. Hearing those words, the memory hit me like a physical blow. After I died, the nurses had tried to call Silas repeatedly, but he was at Felicia's side, ignoring every buzz of his phone. Later, when he finally answered a call at work, he only heard the first few words before scolding the caller. If Nora told you to call and pull this stunt, tell her it isn't working. I've signed the papers. We're done. Don't call me again. Leaving the detention center, Silas looked like a walking ghost. He got into his car and pulled a small velvet box from the glove compartment. He opened it to find a small silver protection locket. I clenched my invisible fists at the sight of it. I grew up as an orphan, fighting for every inch of my life. Silas had fallen for me at first sight in college, and chased me relentlessly. I was focused on my studies and rejected him over and over. During my sophomore year, I witnessed a violent mugging while working a side job. The trauma gave me a fever so high I was delirious for days. The doctor said if the fever didn't break that night, I'd suffer permanent brain damage. Silas heard about a local tradition, and hiked up a mountain to a secluded chapel. He spent the entire night on his knees, praying for a miracle. He brought back that blessed locket, and placed it around my neck. Miraculously, my fever broke within the hour. When I woke up and realized what he had done, I held him tight. Thank you, Silas. I'm yours. That was the day I finally said yes to him. On the day I left, I had left the locket behind as a final goodbye. I thought he'd thrown it away. I never realized he'd kept it all this time. Watching him touch the locket, I bit my lip. How did the man who loved me that much turn into the man who let me die alone? I couldn't understand it. Not then. Not now. Silas was about to start the car when his phone rang. It was Felicia. Silas, where did you go? I woke up and the bed was cold. Lyle Jansen says Nora died at Eastwood. I'm going there to prove he's a liar. He hung up before she could respond. He arrived at the hospital and marched up to the nursing station. I need to check the records for a patient named Nora Guthrie from 2 years ago. As he waited, a voice called out behind him. Silas. He turned around, his brow pinching. Felicia? What are you doing here at this hour? She stepped forward looking worried. I care about Nora too, Silas. Even if she hated me. But can we really trust a criminal like Jansen? He's probably just using you. Nora always had a flair for drama. What if she set this up too? The nurse interrupted them. Nora Guthrie. She passed away 2 years ago. Silas stood frozen, his world tilting on its axis. It took him a long minute to find his voice. What did you just say? The nurse looked at him with a mix of pity and confusion. She died 2 years ago. She was a patient of Dr. Jansen's during an emergency procedure. 2 months ago, since no one had claimed her remains for years, she was donated to the university as a medical cadaver. The words turned Silas's face ashen. He began to shake his head frantically. No, that's not right. Where is she? Call her out here. Tell her the joke is over. The nurse looked at him as if he had lost his mind. Sir, I just told you she is deceased. Silas tried to argue, but Felicia grabbed his arm, pulling him close. Silas, please, you need to calm down. He blinked, reality finally cracking his composure. Jansen knows where she is. He shoved Felicia aside and sprinted toward the exit, back at the detention center. Silas stared at Lyle Jansen through the glass, his voice a broken rasp. Is she really gone? Lyle nodded slowly. Yeah, I was the one who handled the paperwork. Lyle slid his phone across the small ledge under the glass. On the screen was a photo of me, covered in blood, lying lifeless on a cold metal table. He swiped to the next photo. It was a tiny, undeveloped fetus. And that was your daughter. I remember when I first made the incision. She was crying out for you with her last bit of strength. Lyle closed his eyes as if savoring the memory. Silas couldn't take it anymore. He lurched forward, slamming his hands against the glass. You animal. You monster. Lyle stared back unfazed. I didn't have a grudge against her. Why would I want her dead? But someone offered me $3 million to make sure she didn't survive. Silas gritted his teeth, his eyes bloodshot. Who? Who else? Your precious little wife, Felicia Shaw. Silas's face went dead white. That's impossible. She wouldn't. Lyle swiped to a video on the phone. Wouldn't she? The video showed a version of Felicia Silas had never seen. Dark, cold, and calculating. I'll give you the $3 million. I've already arranged for a truck to hit her car. When she's brought to this hospital, you make sure the surgery fails. Is that clear? Her only mistake was trying to take my man. Silas is mine. He was always meant to be mine. Felicia's eyes in the video were filled with a sick, twisted obsession. Lyle let out a dark smirk. Silas watched the video 3 times. By the end, his hands were trembling so violently he could barely hold the phone. No, he whispered hoarsely. No, Felicia wouldn't. Lyle laughed. You defense attorneys are hilarious. You can smell lies from miles away in court, but when it comes to the people you love, you're blind as hell. Silas looked like someone had ripped the bones out of his body. I had never seen him like this before. Not even during the nastiest cases of his career. Not even when his father died. This was different. This was the face of a man realizing he personally delivered his wife to her killer. Lyle leaned closer to the glass. You know what her last words were before anesthesia kicked in? Silas's breathing stopped. She kept begging for you. My throat tightened painfully. She said, "Please call my husband. Tell him I'm pregnant. He'll come for me." Silas staggered backward. For one horrible second, I thought he might actually collapse. "But you never came," Lyle finished softly. The silence afterward was suffocating. Then suddenly, crash. Silas swept everything off the metal table beside him. The guard outside jolted. "Mr. Guthrie." Silas slammed both palms against the glass so hard it shook. "You touched her," he snarled. The sheer hatred in his voice made even Lyle pause. "You killed my wife. You killed my daughter." Lyle only smiled faintly. "No," he corrected. "I was just the knife." His eyes darkened. The person who sharpened it was Felicia. Silas drove home like a madman. Red lights blurred past. Rain slammed against the windshield. I floated beside him silently, staring at the side of his face. He looked destroyed. His eyes were bloodshot. His knuckles were split from punching the detention center wall on his way out. By the time he reached the house, dawn was beginning to break. The nursery light was still on. Felicia sat in the rocking chair, gently cradling the baby. The image looked so warm, so peaceful, so normal. It made my death feel even crueler. She looked up with concern. "Silas? Where have you been all night?" He stood in the doorway staring at her. Really staring. Like he was seeing her for the first time. Felicia smiled nervously. "You're scaring me." Silas stepped forward slowly. "Did you kill Nora?" The room went completely still. Felicia's expression froze for half a second. Too fast for anyone but a trial lawyer to catch. Then she laughed lightly. "What kind of question is that?" Silas walked closer. His voice was terrifyingly calm. "Did you arrange the truck accident?" Felicia stood up carefully, still holding the baby. "Silas, listen to yourself. Did you pay Lyle Jansen $3 million to murder my wife?" The baby began fussing from the tension in the room. Felicia's face slowly lost all color. And in that moment, Silas knew. I saw it happen. The exact second his last shred of denial died. He looked at her like she was something rotten. Something inhuman. Felicia swallowed hard. "You went to see Jansen." Silas didn't answer. That silence was enough. Her entire demeanor changed. The sweet softness vanished. The woman in the video emerged instead. Cold. Sharp. Obsessive. "She ruined everything," Felicia whispered. I stared at her in shock. Even after death, hearing it out loud hurt. Felicia clutched the baby tighter. "You have no idea what it was like watching you love her." Silas looked physically ill. "She treated you terribly. She fought with you constantly. She threatened divorce every other month. She was my wife." His voice cracked on the last word. The grief inside it nearly shattered me. Felicia's eyes reddened. "And I loved you more." She almost screamed it. "I was the one always beside you. I understood you. I supported your career. I gave you peace." Silas laughed suddenly. A horrible, broken sound. "Peace." He stepped closer. "You murdered a pregnant woman." Felicia's lips trembled. "She was going to leave you anyway. She was carrying my child." The roar echoed through the entire house. The baby started crying loudly. Silas looked like a man standing in the ruins of his own life. "You let me believe she abandoned me," he whispered. Felicia's breathing became uneven. "I did it for us." Silas stared at her for a long, long time. Then he asked the question that finally broke me. "Did she suffer?" Felicia's eyes flickered. That hesitation alone was enough. Silas shut his eyes. I watched tears finally spill down his face. The great Silas Guthrie, the undefeated attorney who never broke under pressure, was crying. And somehow, after all my anger, I still wanted to wipe those tears away. He opened his eyes again. They were empty now. "I loved her," he said quietly. Felicia looked panicked for the first time. "Silas. I loved her since I was 19 years old." Each word sounded like a knife carving through flesh. "She was the best thing that ever happened to me." Felicia began shaking her head desperately. "You love me now. You said." "I lied to myself." Silas looked at the baby in her arms. Pain flashed across his face. Then he pulled out his phone. Felicia's expression changed instantly. Silas. He dialed emergency services. My name is Silas Guthrie, he said flatly. I'd like to report a homicide conspiracy. Felicia's knees nearly gave out. You can't do this. Silas never looked at her again. My wife Nora Guthrie was murdered 2 years ago by Felicia Shaw and Dr. Lal Jansen. Felicia suddenly screamed. You'd destroy your daughter's life for a dead woman? Silas finally turned toward her. His eyes were freezing. No. His voice was deadly quiet. You destroyed all of ours. Felicia was arrested before sunrise. The news exploded across the country by noon. The beloved pediatric charity founder, the elegant wife of the legendary attorney, the devoted new mother. All of it collapsed in a matter of hours. Every channel replayed the footage of her confession at the house. Every headline carried my name. Nora Guthrie murder case reopened. Prominent attorney's wife accused of hiring hitman. Pregnant woman murdered over obsessive affair. The internet tore Felicia apart. Former co-workers came forward one after another. Stories emerged about sabotaged interns, anonymous threats, manipulated cases. Even the truck driver confessed after the investigation widened. Felicia had paid him through layers of shell accounts. The prosecution built a mountain of evidence, so massive even the best defense team in the country refused to touch her case. Ironically, the only attorney capable of saving her was Silas. And he never visited her once. 3 months later, the trial began. Felicia entered the courtroom in handcuffs. The moment the cameras flashed, she instinctively searched the gallery for Silas. She found him sitting in the very front row, wearing the same black tie he had worn at our wedding. But the way he looked at her, there was not a single trace of love left, only disgust. Felicia's lips trembled. Silas. He ignored her completely. The prosecutor played the recording from the nursery. Her confession echoed through the silent courtroom. She ruined everything. I did it for us. She was going to leave you anyway. Every word became another nail in her coffin. Then came the medical photos. The image of my blood-covered body. The tiny fetus beside me. Gasps spread through the courtroom. Several jurors looked horrified. One woman began crying. Felicia finally broke. It wasn't supposed to go that far, she screamed suddenly. I just wanted Nora gone. I didn't know she was pregnant. The second the words left her mouth, she realized what she had done. The courtroom erupted. And Silas simply lowered his head. Like the last illusion he'd been desperately clinging to had finally shattered. Felicia received 2 life sentences without parole. Lal Jansen received the death penalty. As officers dragged Felicia away, she twisted violently toward Silas. I loved you. Her voice cracked into hysteria. I did everything for you. Silas looked at her with hollow eyes. No, he said quietly. You did it because you couldn't stand losing. Felicia went pale. Silas stood slowly from his seat. And that's why you lost everything. Then he walked away without turning back. Forever. After the trial ended, Silas disappeared from public life. He resigned from his law firm, donated most of his wealth, sold the mansion. People said he had gone insane with grief. Maybe they were right. Every week he visited the cemetery. Not just my grave, but the tiny one beside it. Our daughters. He brought fresh flowers every single time. Sometimes he talked for hours. Sometimes he just sat there in silence until sunrise. One winter evening, snow fell softly across the cemetery. Silas knelt in front of my grave, older somehow than he had been just months ago. He carefully placed down a small silver locket, the same one he once climbed a mountain for. I'm sorry, he whispered. His voice broke completely. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. For the first time since my death, I reached toward him. And this time, my fingers didn't pass through. A warm light slowly wrapped around my body. The invisible chain tethering me to the world finally loosened. Silas looked up suddenly, like he felt something. A breeze brushed past him gently. He froze. Then very slowly he began to cry. Not the violent grief from before. Just quiet, broken tears. The kind that come when someone realizes goodbye is real. I looked at him one last time. At the man who had loved me fiercely, failed me tragically, and regretted it far too late. Then I looked at the tiny grave beside mine. A little girl who never got the chance to live. I bent down and kissed the top of the headstone softly. The snow stopped falling around us. And finally, after 2 long years, I let go.